This is a Dude Studios production. And hey, I'm the dude.
Hey bartender, pass me a drink. The reason that I'm here is I need time to think.
I wasn't really getting drunk either. I was just being
Even
I am drinking a little wine.
even if you were, it doesn't matter. Some people gotta take a couple drinks once in a while in order to do interviews and stuff like this. So,
Yeah.
anyway, welcome back to Hey Bartender Podcast. I am your bartender for the evening. I'm the dude, or you can call me Anthony. I've been doing this podcast long enough. We can get to that now. Today, I got a very special show going. My guest today has been a bartender, wine importer, and also member of the band Prisoners of New York. If everybody listening to Hey Bartender Podcast could help me welcome Shane Smith. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
It's always great to get guests on the show. That was my goal for this year, to get more and more guests, because a lot of my shows it's just me babbling. So
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking the time out to help me out with my show.
Well, you bet. Luckily my wife knew how to set me up on Zoom. So
Yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve nowadays with all this thing. Even the celebrities I see on YouTube, they talk about how they're, because of the whole quarantine and everything, they're doing interviews through Zoom, and there's a little bit of a learning curve. Even I had a little bit of trouble trying to remember how to get it to work. But so anyway, you were a bartender, and so what I like to do in the beginning of my shows is, do you have a drink special for us, something that you'd like to make, or something original that we can teach my audience?
Sure. I mean, one of my favorite drinks, and I at one point in my career was a import manager for spirits for a big importing company in New York, a medium-sized company. And I was finding a lot of cool, small micro distilleries in America. And I found a cool producer in Chicago called Letherby. Really great stuff. They make only botanical spirits. So gin. They made one of the first Fernets that was available in America. This is going back 4 or 5 years. Now there's a bunch of them, but 5 or 6 years. So I came up with a cocktail that I named the Amber Negroni.
Okay.
So instead of using anything red or dark colored, dark colored would just come from the Letherby Fernet as the bitter element. So it'd be 1 part gin, 1 part Fernet, and 1 part white vermouth, the sweet type, not the dry. But I always thought it was a little too sweet, so I would go a little higher on the gin, maybe go up to, and maybe like, instead of 1 ounce, go like 1.5 ounces on the gin, and 0.75 on the Fernet and the white vermouth, which I really like, a vermouth called Droppo vermouth, but I don't know how available it is in the rest of America. It's here in New York.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that. There's always been a local bar standard of the name escapes me, the company, the type of vermouth.
Dolan, maybe.
Yeah.
Dolan's around. It has a pretty label.
Yeah.
They make a white sweet vermouth that would totally work with that cocktail. And then I like to stir cocktails, so stir it on ice, be classy, no chunks of ice.
Stir,
and it's good.
Stir it on ice, no shake, just stir a little bit.
I like to stir as opposed to those type of cocktails as opposed to shaking, personally.
Any garnishment that goes with it?
Slice of orange.
Slice of orange goes nice with everything, seems like. So, and the name of that drink again was?
Amber Negroni.
Amber Negroni. All right, people, if you go out there and try to make that drink, please let me know. Dude at heybartenderpodcast.com, and let everybody know, because I like to hear what you people think about all these drinks that I show you guys. So anyway, Shane, on with the show here. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Logan, Utah. It's in northern Utah. It's very close to the border of Idaho. If any of your listeners, I'm sure everybody has, but saw the movie Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
It was filmed in my dad's high school just over the border in Idaho, where he grew up. Those guys were from there, and they filmed it, and they went to BYU and made a student film and showed it at Sundance and got picked up and made this iconic movie.
Wow. That's amazing.
So they don't show the backdrop a lot in that movie, I realize, because I think they wanted it to look like it could be anywhere. But
yeah.
But that's where I'm from. I grew up, my dad's a jazz professor. I grew up in a musical family, raised Mormon. So I'm a total, conflict. Mormon wine importer.
Yeah.
I'm what you call a Jack Mormon.
A which Mormon?
A Jack Mormon.
Jack Mormon. Okay.
Yeah.
Plus with the rock and roll and the drinking and that sounds.
Well, weirdly, the rock and roll, like Mormons do listen to music. They're Donnie and Marie.
Oh, yes. I can't forget them.
But my dad, we played rock and roll in our family band. Mm-hmm. Nothing too crazy. I sang like "Proud Mary" by Creedence Clearwater when I was like 4 years old in the family band. Mm-hmm. So I was raised, and being raised on jazz, but nobody drank.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
So eventually, when did you decide to start working the service industry as a bartender?
Well, there's a lot that went on before that. My music, I had a career in music. I've moved around to a lot of cities. I've lived in several big cities in New York and in America. And but when I got to New York, at some point, I just kind of was like, I don't know if I can keep struggling this rat race of playing music, and I need to find some other way to, because I did actually make a living from music for several years. Mm-hmm. And I took a job at a wine shop in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and then they fired me 2 weeks before Christmas. But and then luckily I got another job at a newer wine store opening called Uva Wine. That's a pretty popular store here in New York, and I ran that for the first 3 years. And learned a ton about wine, became the wine buyer and manager there, mm-hmm. and really learned a lot about natural wine, which is really popular right now, mm-hmm. At least, in a lot of the bigger cities, I guess. But so being in that wine business, I then was like, hey, maybe I should work in a restaurant because they're making a bunch of tips and bartending,
right.
So kind of evolved that way.
Yeah, being a musician, I know how you feel because before I was an aspiring musician. I tried to catch on in Seattle when the Sub Pop era was really popular.
Oh yeah.
Post Kurt Cobain, wherever he is. But
right.
But I tried for quite a few years to catch on, playing various instruments, playing with various people, and I absolutely know how tough it is to actually make money doing that sort of thing, and to find people that you actually can play with. That was the key.
I hear the same thing. I mean, I lived in LA and Hollywood during the tail end of the hair metal years, and my band got signed to a major label, and we thought we were going to be rock stars, and literally Kurt Cobain came along and Alice in Chains,
yeah.
And the writing was on the wall. It was over.
Yeah, I think I remember. I don't. Was the lead singer for Warrant? He was talking about he in his record label's office. Their Cherry Pie. No, that's not Warrant, was it?
Yeah, Cherry Pie.
Yeah, their album Cherry Pie was on big on the wall, and they were all happy. And the next time they walked in, all of a sudden they saw Alice in Chains facelift, and they thought, "Oh crap."
Yeah.
And,
no, it's true. It's true. I can even remember, I know a moment when it happened. We went to there was an remember the metal magazine Rip?
Yeah.
R.I.P. magazine?
Yeah.
I through some contacts got invited to the Rip magazine party. It was like the event you wanted to go to. And they had the coolest bands playing and everybody schmoozing. And it was in the Hollywood Palladium, this crazy venue. And this guy I knew in the business who was the manager of Ugly Kid Joe. Do you remember that band?
Yes, of course.
I Hate Everything About You was a big.
Yeah.
I knew this guy, and he goes, "Dude, you got to check out this band, Alice in Chains." And I'm like, "Who's she?" And he's like, "No, dude, it's not a she."
Yeah.
And we saw them come on, and Lane Staley had short hair and Ray-Ban glasses and like a 70s disco shirt,
mm-hmm.
and people were moshing and going psycho. And I just looked at my guitar player, and I'm like, "It's over."
I wondered if that was kind of the conversation that Metallica had, because when they did their Black album and they still had the long hair and all that stuff, then Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, they all of a sudden came out and became popular. And then all of a sudden Load and Reload came out. They had short hair. They were playing a half step down. And
screaming so much.
were they conforming? I often wondered about that. I mean, I still love the music that came out post Black Album, but
absolutely. Didn't they all go to therapy around then too?
Oh, that was a long ways
later.
after Jason after Jason Newsted left the band.
Right.
So, did you get to rub went to a thing for Rip Magazine? Did you get to rub elbows with anybody that's anybody that I would know?
I mean, that night I don't remember. I remember seeing Lane Staley passed out next to the bar with his head in his hands. Like, clearly, whenever he took whatever he was taking that night, whether it was pre-show or after, he was a goner, and he wasn't famous enough for anybody to give a damn,
Yeah.
He was I just recognized him from the disco shirt. But I mean, he had like this polyester flowered shirt on. But man, that night I can't remember. There was definitely a lot of people there. I had some crazy experiences in Hollywood. One night, David Coverdale from Whitesnake got up and sang 3 songs with me at what is now the Viper Room. It used to be called the Central.
Oh, I know it as the Viper Room. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Central. It's like a famous place. I mean, if there's the band The Sweet, they have this album called Desolation Boulevard. It's an amazing album. But this Central bar is in the background. It was kind of kitty corner to the Whiskey A Go-Go. And then now it's the Viper Room. So.
Yeah.
But
that's where I know it from, because everybody talks about, when they talk about the Whiskey A Go-Go, they also talk about the Viper Room.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever point, I mean, literally the owner that owned it, when we were associated with Central, they actually took pity on us and let our band store our gear in the basement. And we were just poor and like literally sleeping on like strippers' floors and stuff. And they kind of took us in, and we would do showcases in the bar during the afternoon for labels and stuff, or possible management and stuff. And then one day the owner of the bar was kind of sadly the classic like alcoholic bartender. He just died on the bar.
Oh God.
He was just there drinking a cocktail like 4 PM, and he just boom. And so the daughter just was like, I guess I got to sell the bar. And Johnny Depp and Chucky Weiss and some other guy, I don't know if they had partners bought it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And they changed it drastically. But.
Yeah, that sounds like typical rock star lifestyle, though. You're just sleeping where you can, and
it was hand to mouth for about 1.5 years or so there in Hollywood, and then we got this deal, and they gave us a little money, and we got an apartment, and went out and bought beds that night, and we all slept like 12 hours.
Yeah, eating bologna and cheese, no bread. And
oh my God, Top Ramen.
Oh, Top Ramen. Yeah, I don't think any of us would have survived our teenage years without Top Ramen.
Yeah, right. Top Ramen and tortillas, and yeah. There was actually there are AM PM gas stations. They had like a 2 for $1 microwavable hamburgers.
Yeah.
God knows what kind of damage that did to my system for the rest of my life.
Yeah, quarter pound big bites from 7-Eleven that probably did a lot of damage to me.
The same thing actually with a different package.
So eventually your music career, as you described it, if I understood you correctly, led you to deciding that, okay, I'm not making much money, so bartenders and servers get to take home money every night. So that sounded like a good deal. Is that pretty much how it got started for you?
Yeah. I mean, I was working in a wine store and realized like there's only so much money you can ever make in this. And I was getting more and more interested in spirits, to be honest, actually, too. And so I sort of went off and started learning about cocktails, learning about the history of it and the different things that go into making all these cool cocktails. And at one point, I actually managed to move away from New York for a little while, ironically, with the name of my band. I did not be a prisoner in New York for a minute. And I ended up working in a couple of cool restaurants in Asheville, North Carolina. I redid the cocktail menus for them, and I helped open a bar called the Richardson in Williamsburg. It's a really cool cocktail bar. I learned a lot from the guy that owns that, Joel. And then just started kind of getting bartending gigs at different cocktail bars in the city. And strangely enough, landed a gig bartending at my friend's bar that owned the legendary Trash Bar in Williamsburg, and ended up working there for quite a while. Well, for a couple of years, and then I started selling wine as a rep on the street and stopped working there. But
So you spent quite some
became more
time.
of a facilitator of selling bars the stuff they need to make the cocktails.
Right. So
Yeah.
you spent quite a little bit of time in Pennsylvania, am I right?
No, not Pennsylvania. Well, I was in Chicago. My
Oh.
wife is from Pennsylvania, actually.
Mhm.
But I lived in Chicago for about 6 years, and I was the singer in a band there. And that's when I was like actually making a pretty good living from music.
Mhm.
But I felt like I wanted to challenge myself, and I was kind of a little bored living in Chicago, so I moved to New York for no other reason than a change of pace. And that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what year did that happen?
Yeah, that was in 1998, 99. I
Mhm.
lived in Texas for a year.
Oh, really?
I came to New York and it didn't quite work. Just didn't gel. I couldn't find an apartment, so I left all my stuff in storage and moved to Austin, Texas for a year.
Mhm.
And I recorded an album while I was there, and had a band and stuff. And then I ended up moving back to New York.
So you just moved around so you could practice your passion, actually play music and get out in front of people. And
Yeah, it was pretty much that was the motivation for many years. I mean, I've lived in Portland, Oregon, LA, Boston, Austin, Chicago, New York.
now,
So it's all basically going chasing the next gig or joining a band that I had to move to another city to be in or something. So
sure. Now, I only just recently found out about this, and this is kind of something that I'm learning about. When you were doing the bartending thing, actually working behind the bar, or
Yeah.
I only found out recently that there's a lot of bars out there, especially on the East Coast, that you only make tips. You don't get an hourly wage
Oh.
along with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of these weird, they call it the New York industry experience. Like, you're bringing to the table whatever experience you had before that's going to enable you to make money, and they don't have to pay you. Or they'll pay you a very basic, they were getting away with it for years, but now it's, in New York at least, it's different. Now they have, like, there's a minimum wage. So they have to pay you a minimum base salary.
Mm-hmm.
But before, you get like, they pay you like $3 an hour or something. It's like some weird amount that would show up on a check, to make it look sort of legit. And then you literally depended on your tips.
Mm.
And for years they would let you take your tips and claim them and then work out your taxes. Then they started taxing your tips.
Right.
Then that was like a big change for a lot of bartenders, where all of a sudden they weren't just able to kind of, hey, I made $500 last week and not 1,000,
Right.
that all of a sudden the actual restaurant or bar was taxing all the tips they made. So
That
it's very different than it was.
I don't know what tipping is like on the East Coast or in the type of places, because the tipping value varies from place to place. But in the bars that I used to work at, I don't think I could have survived on tips alone. I needed that hourly check in.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, luckily in New York, there's sort of this built-in industry understanding that you kind of tip well,
Mm-hmm.
Or at least 20% if you're getting a check, and like a couple of bucks or more if you're getting a drink made and you're paying in cash. But people are pretty good. It's gotten a little worse, honestly, over the years. But my brother still bartenders too. He's the drummer in the band.
Mm-hmm.
He bartends at a couple of really popular bars in Williamsburg. One's called Rockarola and the other's called Skinny Dennis. And but he does good. But it's mainly tips.
So I mean, I picture those days when I was bartending, because I bartended in a small town in Oregon, and I picture I pictured those days where the customer would say, "What's the point of tipping? Don't you make enough?" And then I'd try to act smart and say that the definition of tipping is to ensure prompt service or something like that. And
Right. Right.
and it got annoying. So, but there were times where like the person didn't tip me. Okay, whatever. I can, I'll make it up somehow.
Right.
But when you're working on strictly tips alone, that can actually hurt, can't it?
It can hurt a lot. You can have some rough nights for sure.
I mean, you got somebody taking up valuable real estate on your bar, and they don't reciprocate. That can,
or even if you're making a cocktail that takes 5 minutes to make or something, and 3 minutes to make, and that adds up over time a lot, and then someone just adds $1 to their check to the tip. It's not much.
Yeah, and then you really grow to hate those people that want blended drinks.
Yeah, then you're like, come on. You're like, you look like a scotch and soda kind of to me.
So, I don't. People didn't hear the conversation part. You said, along with bartending at one of the places where you worked, you were also karaoke DJ.
Oh yeah,
carrying on with your music life in a way.
Yeah.
What you got to have some good stories about that.
Yeah, I got a couple of good ones. Well, so bartending at being the karaoke host at Trash Bar on a Friday night was like one part bouncer, which I'm definitely not a bouncer. I'm 6'2", I'm a tall guy, but I'm not a bouncer. But I think stepping on stage and going like, "Hey buddy, can you just get off?" Like being 6'2", it helped a little bit, and I don't think I have like an antagonistic personality, but yeah, you get the guy that just wouldn't get off the stage, and you have to kind of gently force him over. But I've definitely stopped fights before. So people fight at karaoke.
I've never experienced that, but okay.
Hard to understand, and people getting really angry and throwing stuff at the DJ or at me, that like throwing a drink or something because they didn't get to come on sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Is another fun thing. But I don't know if you've heard of a metal bar in Brooklyn also called St. Vitus.
No.
Bar. It's a big venue. Well, I mean, they're really struggling right now. I know they're trying to raise money on a GoFundMe, but it's an amazing place. It's where Nirvana did their reunion with Joan Jett singing.
Oh yeah.
After some big awards show, they went to, it was a secret show, and they went to St. Vitus and had this incredible show this whole night. I didn't get to be there, sadly, but I was also the karaoke host there for a metal karaoke night. Okay. And one night, some guys were there that were being kind of rowdy, and it wasn't a huge crowd, and they were kind of body slamming each other and doing some stuff, and I think they were British, and I'm on stage introducing the next song, and this girl jumps on stage because she loved the song it was an AC/DC song that the DJ was playing in between the songs, and she started singing with me, and I'm trying to introduce the next singer, and I thought it would be a good idea to pick her up on my back. Mm. And kind of piggyback her, and then introduce the next singer, and she was a little heavier than I expected. And I kind of toppled over backwards with her on top, underneath me. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, one of these drunk British guys dove on top of the stage and body slammed on top of me like he was doing a wrestling move.
Oh my.
And broke 3 of my ribs in several places and almost broke my back.
Okay, I've never heard of broken bones at karaoke. That's a new one for me.
It's real. It took about 2 years to heal. Honestly, I couldn't sleep on my left side for 2 years.
But women getting up and dancing to AC/DC, that was always very common.
That's pretty common.
Yeah.
And the shtick at that night was if you get up and sing a song, you get a free shot of Evan Williams.
Really? That's a great promotion.
That's pretty good. It's the green Evan Williams, so it hurt a little the next day, but
yeah. So, but as a karaoke DJ, and you also poured while at that same place, right?
Yeah.
Did that?
I didn't. At the trash bar, I was a bartender. Yeah.
Okay. So did that add to your persona, your character? Because basically, when you're a bartender, you're a character, you're a performer.
Absolutely.
Being a karaoke DJ add to your bartending nights? I mean, you make friends that would come in and visit you on your bartending nights.
Absolutely. People come in and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to sing this song this week. I'm going to do this song that like been practicing all week," you know.
Now,
And then they get up and sing, and you'd be like, "You practiced?" No, I think everybody should be able to sing karaoke.
Oh yeah, everybody should, whether they're good or not, because that's what karaoke's for.
They just got drunk before because they were nervous, and then they get up there and they just,
But the ones that get up there and sing that used to annoy me were the ones that after they sing one song and their friends cheered them on, all of a sudden they think they're going to be the next American Idol or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then I kind of have to, yeah, sure, yeah, go ahead. Oh God, that's going to be horrible.
Oh yeah. It's terrible. It's hard to tell somebody that they can't sing, but.
Oh, I tried never to say that, but but some people like this one woman, she used to like to get up in karaoke and sing AC/DC songs all the time, and she all of a sudden started making plans to move and start a singing career because she thought I'm a singer. That's what I was put on this earth to do. And
people are like, "You're so good."
And except when it came to me, they because some people knew about my background in music business and audio production and stuff like that, so they would make the mistake of asking me, what do you think? And I looked at her and I said, you're going to be competing at that time, this early 2000s. You're going to be competing with people like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, and you're almost twice their age. I don't think it's going to end up the way it's going to be that you think it's going to be. This woman actually ended up getting angry with me, leaving the bar. And I didn't see her for about 6 months, and she came back in and she said, "You have no idea how right you were." That's all, and I never brought it up again.
Oh wow, that's tough. Hey, you kind of did her a service. So.
Well, I tried to warn her. But yeah. So, but watching people do karaoke, I mean, it's part of the fun. I mean, whether you sing well or sing bad. It's just fun to get up there and step out of your comfort zone once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's about the performance and the enthusiasm, really.
Right. And
that's the great.
Yeah, I never discouraged anybody. I don't think you should go up there. Or, oh, you want to sing? Okay, yeah, we'll cheer you on from over here. And
yeah,
I mean, people were nice to me because the shtick I got well known for in my bar was singing Santana's song "Smooth" at karaoke nights.
Oh yeah.
And so it would piss my manager off hugely because I'd have to leave the bar, sing the song, then I'd get back behind the bar. But I had a long talk with her about it, and she's like, "I don't think you should do that anymore." I'm like, the customers expect it. They ask me to do it, and they're coming in to see me do it. And so, that you're making money on me doing that. So why don't you just see past that a little bit?
Yeah.
But karaoke helped me because I was new at bartending at that point in time, and that kind of helped develop a character for me because I wasn't that much of a talker. But now I got a podcast, and now I talk too much.
There you go. Man.
But
it's good.
So I read on your Prisoners of New York Facebook page that basically you and a friend, was it, or was it your brother?
What do you started the band?
You two basically were sitting at a bar one night, and then all of a sudden just decided, let's try this.
Yeah. So I mean, it's clearly like a bigger story than that, but it's a friend of mine, like a really amazing guitar player, which you'll hear, I guess, later. We've done some other musical projects, and he actually is a guitar player in a live karaoke band to make cash, and he teaches guitar lessons. But he's known about town as like one of the best guitar players. But we had a band together that was it was called Sword Fight.
Sword
And
Fight.
it was just me. It was me on drums and him on guitar, because I actually played drums too, but I'm a singer. And that was, lasted about a year. But I had just been coming up with song ideas. I had kind of stopped my attempts to ever try a band again, going back to that initial thing of like, I gotta find some other way to make money. And I ended up working in this wine store that turned into kind of a career for me, actually, totally by accident. And then bartending kind of evolved after that. I had kind of put that on the back burner, and I did a couple of acoustic sets where I'd go and play 5 or 6 songs. It was some night, a couple of times, a handful of times. And then singing a little karaoke. People knew that I could sing, but it wasn't really like in the forefront at all, And I was just kind of getting more inspired to like, what could I do to, start this again? And I was coming up with songs. I never stopped writing songs, but I was writing a lot more rock songs. And I just kind of ended up meeting up with the guitar player at a show that was ironically this somebody that worked at that bar, St. Vitus bar, where I got my ribs broken. And we went across the street to Rock'n'Rolla, and where my brother was working weirdly, and sat down at a table just having some beers. And I'm like, man, if I started a band again, and I said, I would want it to be like a band that no one was going to try to push me into being like something that I'm not, stylistically or something. I'd have to write most of the songs and kind of be in control, but it would be like a bluesy heavy riff rock band with me singing kind of bluesy, soulful vocals over, but really based around songs, like real songs with a chorus and a verse and a bridge, and, not just jamming a bunch of riffs and then trying to throw some vocals over it. And Rock and Roll is decorated with all these pictures of rock stars and stuff, and the table is all laminated with just a collage of famous rock stars. And on that table was AC/DC and Bad Company and some different bands that are like big influences of mine, like weirdly sitting on that table, like that very table we were sitting at. And then I proceeded to get kind of drunk and forgot the whole thing. And the next afternoon, I got a text from Andy, and he said, "So is this idea of this heavy bluesy rock band just all drunk talk, or do you really want to do this?" And I was like, "Oh shit!" I'm like, you know what? Why don't we?
Yeah,
let's do it. And sort of in a roundabout way, we ended up getting my brother on drums. He was about to have a kid, so he was kind of not available really, but we worked it out later that he could kind of join us on drums. And then an old friend from the rock world here in New York was thrilled to join up on bass. Wasn't in a band at the time, and he's a guy that's played with some famous people too. So we're
that was one of the things that
it kind of happened literally out of a drunken conversation. I think I kind of painted myself into a corner.
and how long ago did that conversation happen?
That was 2014. 2015. 15.
So and
June of 2015.
And you guys are still writing songs and playing and.
Yeah, we just released that EP with Nothin To Lose on it. We recorded a bunch of songs a while back, and once again, in St. Vitus comes up a lot. We'll go into a bar of somebody we know and set up our recording equipment and record, kind of turn it into a studio. Mm-hmm. Record during the off hours, and then we have to be packed up and ready to load out of there at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that the band's playing that night can load in. But we haven't been able to rehearse, of course, because of quarantine and all that stuff. Lately, we've been talking a lot. There's a possibility we could get a couple of gigs where we're actually distanced from the people listening. We'd play inside of a bar through the window, people sitting on the street, which sounds pretty awesome for me.
Actually, that's a great idea. I still have friends in Seattle. One of them, probably most natural musicians I've ever met in my life, but he just loves playing cover tunes. That he can write music amazingly, but he just loves playing other people's music, even though his songs are great. And right. The bar that he plays at, they went out and played outside and for everybody just because they missed playing. And so it was just, okay, we're going to be out here if you guys want to listen. So and
Yeah, I
they
mean,
put on a
why
show.
not?
And so that's a great idea. I mean, even a lot of musicians are doing the Zoom meetings. You got the four squares on YouTube, and you see
Yeah,
each musician as they do their thing. It's thoughtfully edited, but
yeah, it's well done. I mean, I follow Sammy Hagar, and he
right,
does that. His band is amazing. Is Jason Bonham on drums? It's incredible. But clearly they know what they're doing, though. I'm sure I would muck that up pretty good the first few times, but
everybody does. I'm sure but guys like Sammy Hagar or who else have I seen? Metallica. They've got people that do that stuff for them. So that's I watched that performance. I think pretty sure they did an acoustic version of one of Sammy Hagar's Van Halen songs, and
yeah,
it was good to see Michael Anthony on bass again. It's been a long time
yeah,
since I've seen him.
he's great.
Yeah.
He's great, and it looks like from the view outside of his window every time they do that, it looks like he's living in a pretty good like marina setting too.
Sure, yeah.
He's on the beach somewhere.
Or like the Bare Naked Ladies did a couple videos too, and you see Ed, the lead singer, standing in front of this amazing landscape of mountains and snow, and
Wow.
and I'm thinking,
Because
wow,
they're in Canada.
yeah. But back to Prisoners of New York. Now, when I cruise around Bandcamp all the time to look for musical acts to put on the show, because I feel that music goes along with bar life. You know, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love to promote independent artists, or if they're not that independent, but they still let me use their song. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
When I listened to you, Nothing to Lose, I was listening to it, and it was almost a relief for me to hear your style of music again, because I was getting tired of either overproduction or way underproduction, or songs that were just built off one riff, and
Right.
it brought me back to, well, my musical tastes are a little old. I mean, my first and foremost favorite band in the world is the Beatles, and then the Who, and then it kind of spirals off from there, going to Billy Joel, Garth Brooks. But to hear actual bluesy rock and roll again, it was just like, oh, thank God it's still out there.
Yeah. We get that a lot, actually. We get that comment a lot.
Because was The Darkness, when they came out with that one single, I Believe in a Thing Called Love, I remember actually watching MTV. Was probably one of the last times I ever watched MTV, and I went, yes, butt rock's back.
Yeah, it's back.
But so that I really enjoyed listening to your song, and we'll be playing that up next, or in just a few minutes.
Sure.
Is there anything that you want to say about the song before I play it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an extension of the whole, like the way we came up with the name. I just was riding the M train home from work from Brooklyn to Queens, and that's how I kind of write all my songs at some point. And I wrote a song called "I'm a Prisoner of New York City" because I was just feeling like down and out. I'm like, I'm done with this place, man. I'm out of here. How can I put that into music? And then we couldn't think of a name, and every name of a band I came up with sounded like a strip club in Tampa, Florida. so I was just like hoochie coochie. So our genius guitar player that was also at that first meeting when we decided to come up with this band, it just occurred to him one night, Prisoners of New York, because the song was already there. So that the song Nothing to Lose, it's all this kind of love. It's a love-hate thing with New York. It's a Stockholm Syndrome is the name of our second EP, where like you fall in love with your captor, right?
Right.
So we're stuck here. We're happy. Nobody's trying to leave. I mean, I tried to leave a few times. It didn't work out, so I've just given up. But so it's an extension of that. It's this, let's run away. The city's getting crazy. there's a line about it's combustible and the streets grow mean and the temperature soars, which I thought was very fitting for this last 5 or so months here in New York. It just seems to kind of weirdly fit, even though I wrote the lyrics like 2 or 3 years ago. But it's about kind of getting out of the city and let's have this dream of like someday we can move up to the mountains or something. We got nothing to lose. So, but it's really just a song about hope and kind of like when you're feeling one of those days where it just seems like everything goes wrong, and by the time you get home, you feel like you've been through war.
And with that, from their EP Servitude, here is Prisoners of New York with their single Nothing to Lose.
1, 2, 3, 4.
From Brooklyn, New York, from their album Servitude, that was Prisoners of New York with their song Nothin To Lose. If you want to find out more about them, you can head on over to bandcamp.com, listen to more of their music. They got plenty of music out there for you. If you want to find out even more about them, you can also jump on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Before we get back to the interview with Shane Smith, I just want to remind you guys, if you are in need of morning wake-up juice, head on over to bartendersowncoffee.com. There you can find a whole bunch of different blends of coffee, novelty coffee cups, and coffee machines. Head on over to bartendersowncoffee.com, and if you use promo code HeyBartender, you get 20% off your entire order if you use promo code HeyBartender at bartendersowncoffee.com. Go there today and get yourself some morning wake-up juice. And now we finish up the conversation that we were having with Shane Smith. How's your quarantine going?
Quarantine has been very interesting. I actually contracted COVID-19.
Oh, you did?
On March 14th. Yeah. Is the day I was finishing up work and started feeling pretty weird throughout the day, feeling like I was in a dream world where I was sort of removed from reality. And then by the time I got home, I had a temperature, and the next day it was full on. So I was out of work for 2 weeks. I had a really bad case of it. I was really sick and cough and lungs and fever and all that and crazy body aches and stuff. And my wife caught it. She's a fair amount younger than me. She had a 3-day episode of it.
Mm-hmm.
We've both since tested positive for antibodies. So then I went straight back to work. And I work in the Lower East Side at a wine shop in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So I stopped riding the train because the train was terrifying.
Right.
It was just like went from modern, March whatever to 1985, like almost overnight.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. And so we've been driving to work, and then it's gotten a little better since then. But the Lower East Side and then the East Village in New York is a very different place today. There's a lot of homeless people, a lot of mentally ill. I think kids that were let go out of either Rikers Island jail or Bellevue. There's a psych ward in Bellevue because they needed to make room for beds for people with COVID.
Yeah.
And they're all living on the streets now. And there's shanty towns popping up and kids coming up to your window, like every stoplight or every stop sign you come up to, kids, like people,
right.
Men, even women sometimes. Yeah, it's very different. So it's been a very real experience going through all this. And
I haven't seen much of that. I live in West Texas.
Where in West Texas? Or do you not say?
I live in Odessa, Texas.
Odessa. So okay, Midland, Odessa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And in West Texas, I haven't seen anything really change. I mean, the stores are closed, and you have to wear a mask where you go. I don't see too many people raising a fuss. Not like all those videos, the quote unquote Karen videos on social media. I don't see many people causing trouble. Even the riots really didn't affect this area, and everybody seems to just being cool with it, and just okay, I'll wear a mask. Okay, I'll wash my hands. And since you actually contracted the COVID, you officially are the first person I've met that's actually contracted the virus.
Yeah.
So, has your tendencies, has your habits changed since having it? Other than, well, you already mentioned that you drive to work now. You don't take the train.
I occasionally take the train because it's become more difficult to park in the neighborhood again. So people are coming. A lot of people ran away from New York, especially like neighborhoods where there's a little money, which is kind of right up against where we work. So I do take the train, and my wife takes the train every day to work. So that's kind of a trip, and you got to wear the mask, and then there's always people on the mask, and it's always the worst person. Like the person takes down the mask and then starts coughing on the train. Everybody's just horrified and recoils away. But then you've got for instance, I went out showing wine today because the wines that I import. And I wear my mask and I sanitize before I get out of the car and go into the place. I ask them what their rules are, if there's anything special they'd like me to do. And it's definitely a completely different way of interacting with people. It's totally different, and I guess maybe it's a little more in your face in New York just because it was so bad here, and we're all living now with the fear: is there going to be a second wave in the fall or winter? So,
Mm.
um, and then there's the whole restaurants all set up on the sidewalk and the street, which is a total trip.
Yeah, I bet. Now New York's got tons of restaurants, and I only the only thing I know about New York is what I see in TV and the movies.
Yeah,
I I did do a trip to Syracuse just for a couple weeks for work once,
right.
but there wasn't a lot to see out in Syracuse. But
Yeah.
um, but when you're dealing with like New York City, they you got all those famous restaurants that are basically a hole in the wall, and they're still are they the restaurants are still just trying to survive with
Yeah, a
like
lot of.
takeout.
I mean, I hear about a new one closing, deciding to close every day, which is really sad.
Yeah,
Um, I've also heard of new places opening that have the balls to be like, we were going to open when this all started, so we're going to open. And on that matter, like our wine importing company, my company's called Ruff Mixed Wines, by the way, RUFF Mixed Wines. If anybody wants to look us up, we started just before. We only got our wines in at the end of 2019, and I had about 2 months to try and go out to sell them to customers.
hmm
And so, we feel like we're kind of in that same realm. I'm walking into a restaurant that may not have any budget to buy anything. They're still trying to sell the wines that they had 6 months ago, and going, "Hey, are you guys open to seeing, my portfolio or checking out some wines?" It's pretty tricky dance. But a lot of these restaurants, especially people that you can tell have maybe a little bit more money, they've built these crazy little patios out on the sidewalk or that extend into the street. It definitely looks dangerous when you look at it. These people are just set up literally where the cars normally parked.
yeah,
And they have to have kind of a structure built around where the tables are that's 18 inches thick and has reflectors that cars can see when they're driving by. And then they just try to make it look as nice and attractive as they can. You got to give it to these restaurants, like the tenacity, that New York spirit to try to survive.
sure.
It's inspiring, actually, and they're killing it. But also, all of New York is walking around drunk on the streets right now. So we've turned into New Orleans, literally.
I half expected that of Las Vegas, but when COVID-19 was in the quarantine was in full effect, people were sending me pictures of the Strip in Las Vegas, and it was a ghost town. And
That's crazy.
and I no cars, maybe 2 or 3 pedestrians in the picture. I'm like,
Wow.
that's crazy. When you were talking about some odd people out on the streets, I
Yeah.
recently visited my family in Portland,
Okay.
and Portland, I guess has made the news quite a bit over everything that's going on right now. And when I got there, I was looking around, going, "This is not the Portland I remember," because a bunch of the businesses are boarded up.
Yeah.
Some of the businesses were previously on fire before they got boarded up. Homeless people living on the sidewalks. It's scary. And
Yeah. Crazy.
I felt bad for a lot of the businesses because I know a lot of the mom and pop businesses around there. And
Mhm.
I'm sure they had to shut down completely and are worried about whether or not they can go back.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite restaurants out there, it's a New York style restaurant they call Richie B's. Best cheesesteaks in Portland, best
Cool.
great Sicilian style pizza. Yeah, but actually, it's not called Richie B's anymore. But fans of Richie B's will know who I'm talking about. But I was actually kind of worried about them, but when I never got to that street where I knew they were at. But it's scary out there right now, and
Yeah. The
it worries
bars
me.
are trying. Speaking of bartenders, I mean, the bars are trying to survive here, and the state has made a law that you have to serve food
Of
with
course,
drinks because people are just walking up and buying frozen margaritas or just whatever the bar is doing and just stumbling around the streets, literally drunk. And I think it's a kind of a way for the city and the state to try to save face a little bit too.
yeah,
But now you have to like serve somebody a cheese sandwich or something, here's your beer and your cheese sandwich or your pretzels, like it has to be something more than chips or pretzels, I guess. But people are coming up with some pretty creative ways to stay alive. And a lot of my bartending friends have, somehow managed to survive through this. They're not making the same kind of money, but they're not dying. So
well, that's good.
And people are coming out and trying to support. Honestly, they really are. People are tipping huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few things in social media where the bars are opening back up, at like 50% capacity. But but people are truly supporting. The regulars are showing true support by tipping well or just making an extra effort to go to their favorite watering hole just for a visit. And I think that's just awesome.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of maybe a sneaky relief aspect to it too. If you go to a bar and you sit in the outside area, and you can take off your mask.
Yeah.
So
give me the lowdown on Ruff Nicks. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, so Ruff Nicks. So after years of, I've been a manager and wine buyer for several different stores and a couple of bars, and I opened a wine bar called Black Mountain that's still in business. Just I'm not affiliated with it, but I'd accumulated a lot of experience and a lot of contacts and a lot of friends, not just people that were buyers and people in the industry here in New York, but winemakers and people out, in Europe. So the last place I managed was a really cool place. The guy's actually from San Antonio, Texas, and has family in Marfa, Texas, of this wine store called Duke's Liquor Box in Greenpoint. And I was working there, and I just kind of was having that feeling like, this is cool, but I need to do something more. I've done too much in this business to kind of keep managing a wine store and whatever. It's nice to be able to go play in the band and everything, but we need to do something different. So I came up with the idea while I was on vacation with my wife in France to, maybe really try to start importing wine. I thought about it for years. It seemed always like it wasn't in my reach, within my grasp, like financially. So we figured out a way. We just kind of started crunching the numbers, and a good friend of mine, I asked for advice from, who's a distributor, just a small little wine distributor. He actually delivers the wine to his customers himself. He just said, why don't you team up with me and I'll be your distributor and we'll start bringing the wines in and see how it goes. And I said, I was like, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, I got to have a name because now in New York, it's like all these new little companies have their cool names, but it had to be something music kind of related. And I just came up with that idea of like a rough mix of a song. Like sometimes the rough mix that you got at the studio the night you finished recording sounds better than the one you finished for the album,
Yeah.
More gutsy, and it's got more passion. So
it's rough mix. Rough mix. I think I called it Rough Nicks. So
rough mix.
Rough
like
mix.
RUFF MIXX.
Gotcha.
MIX. Sorry, MIX. I could hold up our logo for you, but
this is an audio podcast. Don't worry about
it. I know. But and we have roughmix.com. So, but so we started it up. I went on a trip out to France and Spain searching for some wines. I had a couple of contacts and stayed with a friend of mine that's a winemaker. And little by little, over a 10-day period, just one thing after another kept popping up into my radar. And I came back with way more options than I thought I would have of people that had never even exported their wine to America before, and found some really cool things. And I was off to a great start the first of the year before COVID. But we're coming back strong now. We really had several good weeks in a row right now. So we've got a goal now to kind of double our best month at the end of this month. So and it's all natural wine with like low or no sulfites.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you go out searching for wine, or when you're looking for people to import stuff, do you have a specific list of things that you look for?
Yes, I do. One is going to be the region. I have places I like, and I figure, like, especially in the beginning, you got to go with what you know and what you love. There's a lot of French wine in America, but I felt like I had something I could add to that, in Spanish wine. So I go for the region first, and I specifically went to the south of France and Catalan, Spain. Then it has to be a small producer that's working in a very like organic and natural way where they're not putting a lot of additives or any additives into the wine. And somebody that's willing to work with a small guy like me that's kind of in the same boat as me. Like, hey, we're in the same level as you. Maybe we've been making wine for 3 or 4 or 10 years or 20 years, but we've never exported to America, and we don't know how it works. You know, we want to grow together. Maybe you can help us along the way too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's kind of like that. I've met a couple of producers that are bigger in France and bigger in Europe that I was a little intimidated, a little nervous to kind of. They were open to it, but I was like, maybe I'm not ready for you yet. Because there's a lot of expectation too, you know.
Sure. Do you test the wines before you decide to
Oh
distribute?
yeah. Yes, I go there. I taste everything. Sometimes more than once. I take copious notes.
Mm-hmm.
I try to spit when I'm tasting, so I don't.
Keyword try.
Don't let the wine get the best of me. You know. Honestly, in the 10-day trip I took, I didn't really drink all but one night. Back at my Airbnb in this little tiny village in France, and I went to the bar to have a couple of beers, and it was like a scene out of a David Lynch movie. It was the weirdest place I've ever. Just bizarre. The guy playing harmonica at the bar, and another guy was passed out on the bar. And they're like, "Hi, what would you like?" I'm like, "How do you know I'm American? Why did you ask me in English?" Like, you just stick out like a sore thumb, you know. And then I went back to my Airbnb and drank a bunch of wine and kind of got a little tipsy and went to sleep. But the rest of the time, I was so worried about getting pulled over by a cop after tasting wine or something. And also just keeping my mind, you know, focused on the wine. So I take a lot of notes and then come back and hope that it all translates. Once I get back here, I remember it all, you know.
Now, the process of testing wine, I've only seen it done on TV. I've talked to a couple wine connoisseurs that I've run into in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Do you actually use that little silver cup and just take a small sip, let it hit your taste buds, and then?
No, I mean, I use a. I mean, you know, I'm always using a real, like a good wine glass.
Right.
Well-made glass doesn't have to be so expensive, but just something more than the cheapest thing you can find. But you know, when you go to visit these guys, you're depending on whatever glasses they have, you know. So you really never know. I've tasted some weird glasses, like, you know, went in, he's like, "Here, let me wash the glasses." He just rinses them under like a weird faucet, you know, like a garden hose faucet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And then we're tasting wine, you know. But you kind of have to trust your instincts. Luckily, I've been in this a long time. But yeah, you kind of smell it, you taste it, you roll it around in your mouth, you swish it, and then you spit it out.
Do you have a favorite wine as of right now? Because you've been sipping on something through this.
Yeah, I've been drinking this awesome wine that we import called Loup Blanc from the south of France, which translates to the white wolf. That's an old wine. When many years ago, I was a rep at a company called Jenny and Francois, and she represented that wine, and then they parted ways. And that was one of the things that popped up when I was in France last September, is they didn't have representation. So I got up early and drove an hour plus over to find their place, and we tasted all the wines. I'm old friends with the owner, so tasted all the wines and handshook a deal, and that was that. The people love the wines; they're really good. That's definitely high on the list. I would say, man, what do I really love right now? We have a wine from Spain that's made in the Priorat region. That is, sorry, hon. She just came by and picked up the bottle and was shocked to see it was empty. Have some coffee. But we have this other wine. It's from the Priorat region, which is this kind of remote, a little bit region. It was a lot of monasteries. It has this crazy history as far as, like, you know, Spanish history. And really steep, rocky vineyards that people don't really want to work anymore. Some of them have been just left to go fallow, they call it, like go wild. And this producer I found, they go out and work some of these difficult plots and difficult like areas, and combine all the grapes and make a natural wine with no additives, no sulfites or anything added. And it's just this really pure, rich, beautiful, dark fruit. You can't see through it.
Oh,
It's like black. And people love it. Like every time I go out and taste people, it's like the middle of something. We're in the middle of a heat wave still in New York right now.
mm.
And it's a full-bodied, rich wine. And I pour that for them like kind of a bit towards the end. And they're like, wow, I think that's my favorite one. So yeah, that's kind of a favorite right now.
It's
This wine that seems to entice people, even though it's, crazy heat index outside and whatever. And they're like, wow, I love this.
Yeah, unfortunately, as a bartender, and I'm not much of a drinker. It's not because I think drinking's bad for you or anything. I'm just really bad at it, and unfortunately, I don't know much about wine, and because we just the bars that I worked at got deals from our distributor, and we just had a Pinot, Chardonnay, Merlot, and a white Zin. Those were the
Right.
those were the regular ones that we carried all the time.
Right.
And but I do have a couple friends who have worked as wine tasters or working for wineries. Like my sister-in-law, she used to work for wineries in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh yeah, awesome.
And she could probably talk me under the table of everything she knows about wine. And I can just sit there going, okay, because
Right.
I don't have that knowledge. I'm sure if I would have caught on to another bar, I probably would have had to sit through a week of classes. Okay, this particular wine has this kind of bouquet and a sweet flavor or a dry flavor. That would have been difficult for me, but especially since we probably might had to do a couple samples every now and then, and when I get alcohol in my system, my face turns bright freaking red. So
Yeah.
a little embarrassing at the same time.
That might be a little red right now.
But so going from rock and roller to bartender, back to rock and roller to wine distributor, you've led a really groovy life.
It's been an interesting trip, I'll tell you that.
So we're nearing the end of the show. I really appreciate you being on. Is there any way that you would like people to know how to get a hold of you to find the website for Ruff Mix, or where they can find your music? Tell us everything.
Sure.
How to get a hold of you.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Ruff Mix Wines. We're on Instagram. We're just at Ruff Mix Wines, RuffMixWines, and ruffmixwines.com. And we have a good website with information about our producers. And then for the band, it's Prisoners of New York at .bandcamp.com. And we spell it all out. No abbreviations. It's Prisoners of New York. And then the same thing on Instagram at Prisoners of New York. And we just released our new EP, Servitude. People are liking it. So,
Well, like I said, it was a refreshing change from some of the rock and roll nowadays. So
I really appreciate that, and we would like more people to hear us. So
and that's one of the reasons why I developed this show. So
cool. Well, I really appreciate that, and we appreciate the exposure and the love.
Anyway, people, it is last call. That's right, last call for alcohol. It's time to close up this place and go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Finish that drink before I take it away from you. Anyway, I'd like to give a good special thanks to Shane Smith for being on the show. Remember to go check out his business, Ruff Mix, for wine distribution, and check out more music from his band, Prisoners of New York. I'd also like to remind you guys, share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. Also visit www.heybartenderpodcast.com, where you can listen to the latest podcasts. You can catch up on old ones. You can even pick up some old Hey Bartender podcast swag. Got some really cool stuff on there. T-shirts, challenge coins. Just go check it out. And a quick reminder for our sponsors, bartendersowncoffee.com. Use promo code HeyBartender at checkout and get 20% off your full order. Remember, people, if you want to get a hold of me, all you have to do is follow me on Facebook, Hey Bartender Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Hey Bartender Podcast. Or just send me an email, dude at heybartenderpodcast.com. If you want to promote yourself, you want to promote your restaurant, or you want to even promote your band, just let me know, dude at heybartenderpodcast.com, and I will make that happen for you. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, I got to tell you all, I wish you all lots of love, lots of sex, lots of happiness, and don't take any shit from anyone. Good night.
What do you mean it's last call? I just got here!